The year is 1874. You are standing on a jagged outcropping of granite, a tiny speck of solid ground amidst the endless churning grey of the Atlantic Ocean. The air here is different than it is on the mainland. It is heavy with salt, cold and biting, pressing against your woolen coat with a damp insistence that seems to seep into the very marrow of your bones. There is no sound of carriages here, no chatter of pedestrians, no distant hum of industry. There's only the wind, a constant low moan that whistles through the crags of the rock, and the rhythmic, crashing percussion of the waves against the base of your new home. You look up. Towering above you is the lighthouse. It is a monumental cylinder of whitewashed stone, rising 120 feet into the gloom of the twilight sky. It looks less like a building and more like a solitary finger pointing accusingly at the heavens, challenging the storms that breed in the deep west. This is your world now. For the next 3 months, this stone pillar and the few yards of slippery rock surrounding it are the entirety of your existence. You are a keeper, a watcher in the dark, a servant of the light. But mostly, you are alone. You adjust the heavy canvas bag slung over your shoulder. It contains your personal effects. A few changes of thick flannel shirts, a razor, a block of soap, a tin of tobacco, and 2 books. A Bible and a tattered copy of a maritime almanac. It isn't much, but then there isn't much room for luxury here. You reach into your pocket and withdraw a heavy iron key. It is cold against your fingers, the metal pitted with the beginnings of rust despite being well oiled. The door to the lighthouse stands before you, a formidable barrier of oak reinforced with iron bands, designed not to keep people out, but to keep the ocean out. You slide the key into the lock. It turns with a stiff, heavy clunk that reverberates through the wood. You push the door open. It groans on its hinges, revealing a circular room engulfed in shadow. You step inside, and the wind outside is instantly cut off, replaced by a profound, stony silence. The air inside is still and smells faintly of kerosene, damp stone, and old paint. You close the door behind you, throwing the heavy bolts. The world of the living, the world of noise and chaos, is now locked away. You are in the entrance hall, though hall is perhaps too grand a word. It is the base of the tower, a circular stone chamber filled with supplies. Barrels of oil are stacked against the curved walls, their wooden staves dark and stained. There are crates of coal, sacks of flour, and coils of heavy rope. Everything is meticulously organized, stacked with a geometric precision that speaks of boredom and strict regulation. You run a hand along the wall. The stone is painted white, but it feels cold and slightly clammy to the touch. The lighthouse breathes in the moisture of the sea, sweating it out through these thick walls. In the center of the room, spiraling upwards like the skeleton of a great serpent, is the staircase. It is made of cast iron, the steps perforated with a diamond pattern to provide grip for wet boots. You look up through the central well of the stairs. It is a dizzying tunnel of concentric circles, disappearing into the darkness above. You have climbed these stairs 1,000 times in your mind since you accepted this post, but the reality of them is daunting. 160 steps, 160 steps to the lantern room, 160 steps to the light. You begin to climb. Your boots ring out against the metal, a sharp clang, clang, clang that echoes up the shaft, announcing your arrival to the empty tower. The sound is harsh, intrusive in the quiet. You try to step softer, but the iron is unforgiving. Step 1, Step 2, Step 3. The motion is repetitive, hypnotic. Around and around you go, your hand sliding along the smooth, cold iron of the railing. As you ascend, you pass the storage levels. The first floor you pass is the oil room. Through the open archway, you see the large copper tanks gleaming dully in the dim light filtering down from above. This is the lifeblood of the tower. Without the oil, there is no light. Without the light, ships die. It is a simple equation, one that governs every minute of your life here. You note that the tanks seem full, the copper polished. The previous keeper was a diligent man, or perhaps just a bored one. You continue climbing. The air grows slightly warmer as you rise, heat rising from the galley stove far above. Your breath comes a little faster now, the weight of your bag pulling at your shoulder. Step 40, Step 50. The view doesn't change, just the whitewashed walls passing by, the endless curve of the stairs, the rhythmic ringing of your boots. It is a vertical tunnel, a stone intestine digesting you slowly. You reach the next level, the storeroom. Here are the dry goods. Tins of biscuits, jars of pickled onions, sacks of dried peas. The labels are facing forward, perfectly aligned. You imagine the man who stood here before you, shifting a tin of beef a fraction of an inch to the left, then to the right, just to have something to do. You will do the same soon. You will know the inventory of this room better than you know the faces of your own children. You will count the tins. You will rearrange the sacks. You will sweep the floor where no dust settles. Keep climbing. The spiral seems endless, a loop of iron and stone. You start to feel the isolation settling in. It's not just the physical distance from the shore, it's the verticality of it. You are suspended between the earth and the sky, trapped in this stone tube. The sounds of the ocean are muffled here, distant and abstract, like the rushing of blood in your ears. You pass the water room. Huge slate tanks hold the rainwater collected from the roof gutters. This is your drinking water, your washing water. It tastes of bird droppings and soot, no matter how many times you boil it or run it through the filter. But it is precious. You glance at the gauge. It is 3/4 full. Good. A dry summer can make life here very difficult, reducing you to a cup a day for washing and drinking combined. But for now, you are safe. Your legs are beginning to burn slightly. Step 80. Step 90. You are halfway there. The staircase narrows slightly as the tower tapers. The walls seem to close in. You can see the underside of the floor above you now, heavy wooden beams supporting the weight of the living quarters. This is where you will sleep, eat, and spend the vast majority of your waking hours when not tending the light. You emerge onto the landing of the living room, the kitchen. It is a circular room, perhaps 14 feet across. It is cozy in a Spartan sort of way. A cast-iron coal stove sits against one wall, its flue vanishing into the brickwork. A small round table is bolted to the floor in the center, flanked by 2 wooden chairs. There are cupboards curved to fit the walls. A small, deeply recessed window looks out to the west. You walk over to it. The glass is thick, distorted at the edges. Through it, you can see the sun beginning to dip below the horizon, painting the restless ocean in shades of bruised purple and charcoal grey. The clouds are low and rushing, driven by the wind you left outside. The room is tidy. The copper kettle on the stove is polished. The floorboards are scrubbed pale. But there is a stillness here that is almost oppressive. It is the stillness of a place that waits. It waits for you to make tea, to smoke your pipe, to stare at the wall, to pace the floor. You set your bag down on the table. The sound is dull and final. You are here. But you cannot rest yet. The climb is not finished. The light must be tended. You leave your bag and head back to the stairs. They are steeper here, narrower. You climb past the bedroom, glancing briefly at the bunk beds built into the curve of the wall. The mattresses look thin, the blankets heavy and scratchy. A curtain provides a semblance of privacy, though from whom you do not know. You are the only soul for miles. Up again. Step 120, step 130. The air is definitely warmer now, smelling strongly of paraffin oil and heated brass. You are entering the service room. This is the brain of the lighthouse. Here are the spare burners, the cleaning cloths, the logbooks, the meteorological instruments. Brass barometers and thermometers hang on the walls, their needles trembling slightly with the vibrations of the tower in the wind. Yes, the tower vibrates. You can feel it now, a subtle, rhythmic shuddering as the wind buffs the stone. It is disconcerting at first, standing in a stone building that moves, but you will get used to it. You will come to trust the sway. You pause here to catch your breath. Above you is the final flight of stairs, a short, steep ladder really, leading through a hatch in the ceiling. Above that hatch lies the lantern room, the jewel in the crown, the reason for all this stone and iron. The light is fading fast outside. The duty calls. You place a hand on the railing of the service room ladder. The metal is warm. You look up at the hatch. It is open, and a faint, prism-like glow spills down. You take a deep breath, inhaling the scent of the tower. Oil, brass, coal dust, and salt. It is the smell of your new life. You begin the final ascent, your boots heavy on the rungs, rising up towards the great glass eye that watches over the sea. The silence of the tower wraps around you, a heavy blanket of solitude that is both terrifying and strangely, deeply peaceful. You are the keeper, and your watch is about to begin. You climb the final steep ladder from the service room, your boots clanging softly against the iron rungs. As your head rises through the hatch, the world transforms. You are no longer in a stone cylinder. You are inside a diamond. This is the lantern room. It is a cathedral of glass and brass, suspended high above the dark, churning ocean. The wind here is louder, pressing against the thick panes of the glazing with a relentless, buffeting force. But inside, the air is hot and still. Dominating the center of the room is the optic. It is a masterpiece of engineering, a massive, bulbous structure of prismatic glass lenses and brass frames, standing taller than a man. It looks like a giant, glittering beehive. This is the Fresnel lens, a creation of such precise geometry that it can capture the feeble light of a single oil lamp and magnify it into a piercing beam visible for 20 miles. It is beautiful, terrifyingly fragile, and entirely your responsibility. You step onto the metal grating of the floor. The heat hits you immediately. Even though the lamp is not yet lit, the residual warmth from the day and the trapped solar heat make the lantern room feel like a greenhouse. You wipe a bead of sweat from your forehead with the back of your hand. There is no time to admire the view, though it is spectacular. Through the storm panes, you can see the horizon dissolving into the indigo of twilight. The sea is a vast, restless shadow, speckled with the white foam of breaking waves. but your focus must be inward, not outward. First, you must prepare the lamp. You open the small brass door at the base of the optic. Inside sits the burner. It is a complex assembly of concentric wicks fed by a reservoir of oil under pressure. You check the oil level. The reservoir must be full. You pump the handle on the side of the tank, a rhythmic chug hiss, forcing the paraffin up into the burner. You watch the wicks carefully. They must be saturated, glistening with oil, but not dripping. Too little oil, and the wicks will char. Too much, and they will flood, causing the flame to flare and smoke. Smoke is the enemy. Smoke clouds the glass. Smoke dims the light. You take a match from the metal box mounted on the wall. You strike it against the rough strip on the side. The flare of phosphorus is bright in the dim room, the smell of sulfur sharp and acrid. You shield the flame with your cupped hand and guide it to the wicks. They catch instantly a ring of blue fire that quickly grows into a steady yellow-white radiance. The heat intensifies immediately. You adjust the airflow, turning the small brass knob until the flame is perfectly level, burning bright and clean without a flicker. It is a delicate balance, a conversation between you and the fire. You must listen to the hum of the draft, watch the color of the flame. It must be perfect. Now, the rotation. This is a flashing light, which means the great glass hive must spin. You move to the side of the pedestal and locate the winding crank. It looks like the handle of a giant clock. And in a way, that is exactly what this is. A clockwork mechanism driven by a heavy weight that descends down the central column of the tower. You grip the polished wooden handle. It is smooth from years of use. You begin to wind. Click, clack, clicks, clack, clicks, clack. The sound is loud, mechanical, and reassuring. You put your back into it. The weight is heavy, tons of iron hanging on a cable that runs down the center of the spiral staircase you just climbed. You must wind it all the way to the top. It takes time. Your shoulder muscles burn. The rhythm of the ratchet fills the room. Click, clack, click, clack. This is your daily penance. Twice a night you will stand here and wind this machine, ensuring the light never stops sweeping the sea. When the weight is fully wound, you engage the clutch. With a low groan of gears engaging, the massive optic begins to move. Slowly, majestically, the tons of glass and brass start to rotate. It is silent now, save for the faint whir of the governor fans spinning to regulate the speed. The light from the lamp hits the prisms. Suddenly, the room is filled with spinning beams of brilliance. Bars of solid light sweep across the walls, across your face, dazzling and hypnotic. The lighthouse is awake. But your work is not done. The light is burning, the lens is turning. But now you must tend to the glass. During the day, salt spray and condensation coat the outer windows, and soot and dust settle on the lens itself. Everything must be pristine. You pick up your box of cleaning supplies, soft linen cloths, a bottle of spirits of wine, and a chamois leather. You start with the optic itself. You must be gentle. A scratch on these prisms can ruin the focus of the beam. You move around the rotating lens, a dance you will learn to perform with your eyes closed. You polish the glass, wiping away imaginary specks of dust. The light is blinding at this range, searing into your retinas even when you don't look directly at it. You work by feel as much as by sight, your cloth gliding over the smooth ridges of the glass. The heat from the lamp is intense now, baking your face, drying your throat. It is like working inside an oven. Next, the outer panes. You step away from the lens to the storm windows. These are thick, reinforced glass, battered by the elements. You spray the spirits onto the glass and wipe vigorously. The salt is stubborn. It smears before it clears. You rub harder, making circles with the cloth. Outside, the darkness is absolute. You are cleaning a window that looks out onto nothing. You can see your own reflection in the glass, a pale, distorted face illuminated by the sweeping beams of the lens behind you. You look tired, you look small, you move from pane to pane, circling the room. The wind howls outside, rattling the frames, but you are sealed in your bubble of light and heat. You check the clock on the wall. The rotation must be timed perfectly. A flash every 15 seconds. You take out your pocket watch and count. Flash. 1, 2, 3. The beam sweeps out over the ocean, a long finger of light piercing the gloom. 13, 14, 15. Flash. Perfect. The mechanism is running true. The governor fans are whirring at the correct pitch. The sound is a steady, low thrum, a mechanical heartbeat that underlies the roaring of the wind. You step back and survey your domain. The lamp is blazing. The lens is revolving. The windows are clear. The smell of hot oil and brass is comforting. You are the keeper of the flame, the guardian of this mechanical sun. For a moment, you feel a surge of pride. This machine, this tower, it relies on you. Without your hand on the crank, without your eye on the flame, the light would die, and ships would be lost to the dark teeth of the rocks below. But the pride fades quickly, replaced by the crushing weight of the routine. This is only the beginning of the night. You have 10 hours of darkness ahead of you, 10 hours of watching the flame, 10 hours of listening to the wind, 10 hours of silence. You take a rag and wipe a smudge of oil from the brass railing. You adjust the wick by a fraction of a millimeter. You check the thermometer. It is 70 degrees in here, while outside it is freezing. You are warm, but you are trapped. You walk to the door of the lantern room and look down the steep ladder into the darkness of the service room below. It is cooler down there, quieter, but you cannot leave the light for long. You are tethered to it. You sit on the small wooden bench bolted to the wall of the lantern room. It is hard and uncomfortable, designed to keep you from falling asleep. You rest your elbows on your knees and watch the lens turn. Round and round it goes. The beams of light stroke the walls over and over again. Light, dark, light, dark. It is mesmerizing. It is maddening. You close your eyes for a second, just to rest them from the glare. The after image of the prisms burns behind your eyelids. You can hear the gears clicking softly. You can hear the hiss of the burning oil. You can hear the ocean crashing far below. You are alone with the machine that eats oil and time, the machine that demands your life in exchange for its light. You open your eyes. The lens is still turning. The night has truly begun. You descend the short ladder from the lantern room into the service room. The air here is cooler, a welcome relief from the tropical heat of the glass hive above. The noise of the wind is slightly muffled, the roar of the ocean reduced to a dull, rhythmic thudding against the tower's base. This room, with its stone walls and slate floor, feels more grounded, less exposed than the crystal cage you just left. But the light is still with you. Through the open hatch above, the rotating beams cast moving shadows that stretch and contract across the floor, a restless, silent pantomime that never ends. This is your station for the night, the service room. It is a space of waiting, a space of watching. You have a chair here, a simple wooden one with a straight back. You have a small table, and you have the logbook. You sit down and open the heavy leather-bound volume. The pages are thick and cream-colored, filled with the neat copper-plate handwriting of the men who came before you. Rows and rows of entries documenting the mundane reality of life on the rock. Wind, northeast, force 6. Visibility, good. Oil consumed, 2 gallons. You dip your pen into the inkwell. The scratch of the nib on the paper is loud in the quiet room. You record the time. You record the weather. You record the status of the light. It is a ritual, a way of imposing order on the chaos of the night. By writing it down, you make it real. You make it manageable. 2,200 hours. Wind increasing. Barometer falling. Light burning clear. You blot the ink carefully. You close the book. Now, there is nothing to do but wait. You have 4 hours until the next winding of the mechanism. 4 hours to sit in this stone room and listen to the storm building outside. You stand up and pace. The room is circular, perhaps 12 feet in diameter. You can cross it in 4 strides. You walk to the window. It is a small, deep porthole, the glass thick and distorted. You press your forehead against the cold pane. Outside, the world has vanished. There is no horizon, no sky, no sea. There is only blackness. Occasionally, a wave will crash against the rocks with enough force to send spray flying up 100 feet, slapping against the glass like a handful of gravel. But mostly, it is just the dark. You turn back to the room. You check the barometer on the wall. The brass needle has dipped lower since you last looked. A storm is definitely coming. You can feel it in the tower itself. The stone vibrates, a low-frequency hum that travels up through the soles of your boots. The lighthouse is a tuning fork, resonating with the energy of the ocean. You are inside the instrument. You look at the clock. Only 10 minutes have passed since you sat down. Time behaves differently here. It stretches, elongates, loops back on itself. On the mainland, time is measured in events, meetings, trains, meals, conversations. Here, time is measured in revolutions of the lens. Every 15 seconds, a flash. 4 flashes a minute. 240 flashes an hour. You find yourself counting them subconsciously. It is a rhythm that gets into your blood, into your heartbeat. You decide to make tea. You can't go down to the kitchen. You must stay near the light. But there is a small spirit stove here for just this purpose. You light the flame, the blue fire hissing softly. You fill a small kettle from a jug of water you brought up earlier. You wait for it to boil. The waiting is the job. You are paid to wait. While the water heats, you pick up your book. It is the Maritime Almanac. You have read it cover to cover 3 times. You know the tide tables for ports you will never visit. You know the phases of the moon for the next 50 years. You know the identification codes of every lighthouse on the coast. You open it at random. Page 42. Navigation Regulations for the Port of Bristol. You read the dry legalistic text. It is dull. It is incredibly boring. And it is exactly what you need. It occupies your mind without exciting it. It keeps the loneliness at bay. The kettle whistles, a sharp, shrieking sound that makes you jump. You pour the water into a tin mug, dropping in a pinch of tea leaves. You wrap your hands around the hot metal, letting the warmth seep into your cold fingers. You take a sip. It is strong, bitter, and scalds your tongue. It tastes of metal and stale water. It is the best thing you have tasted all night. You sit back in the chair, sipping your tea, listening. The wind is changing note. It was a moan. Now it is a shriek. It whistles around the lantern gallery above, finding every crack and crevice in the metalwork. The tower shudders. You look up at the ceiling, at the hatch. The light is still sweeping, calm and indifferent to the violence outside. It is a comforting thought. No matter how bad the storm gets, the machine keeps turning. But then a thought intrudes. What if it stops? It is the keeper's nightmare. The weight cable snaps. The bearing seizes. The lamp blows out. You run through the emergency procedures in your head. You have spare burners. You have a hand crank for the rotation if the clockwork fails. You would have to stand there, turning the handle by hand, maintaining the steady rhythm for hours until dawn. Your arm would cramp, your back would scream, but you would do it. You would have to. You shake your head. No point borrowing trouble. The mechanism was serviced last week. It is sound. You stand up again. The sitting is making you stiff. You walk to the archway that leads to the stairs. You look down into the dark well of the tower. It is a black pit. You can hear the wind howling down the shaft, a ghostly wailing that sounds disturbingly human. They say lighthouses are haunted. Every keeper has a story. Footsteps on the stairs when no one is there. Voices in the wind, faces in the glass. You don't believe in ghosts. You are a practical man. You believe in oil and wick and gear ratios. But looking down into that darkness, you understand why the stories exist. The isolation does things to the mind. It makes you hear things. It makes you see things. You turn away from the stairs. You focus on the brass polishing cloth on the table. You pick it up. You find a spot on the railing that looks slightly dull. You rub it. You rub it until your reflection is sharp and clear in the golden metal. You rub it until your arm aches. It is a small task, a meaningless task, but it is something to do. Clang. A sound from above. You freeze. It came from the lantern room, a sharp metallic sound. You drop the cloth and scramble up the ladder. Your heart is hammering against your ribs. You burst into the lantern room. The heat hits you. The light is blinding. You scan the room. The lens is turning. The lamp is burning. The windows are holding. Then you see it. A seabird. A gull, perhaps. Or a tern. It has crashed into the storm pane, attracted by the light. It lies on the outer gallery, a crumpled ball of white feathers pressed against the glass. It is dead, its neck broken by the impact. You let out a breath you didn't know you were holding. It happens. The light draws them in. They fly into the glass with terrified force. It is a tragedy, but a small one. The light is safe. The machine is safe. You look at the dead bird. Its eye is open, staring blankly into the glare of the optic. You feel a sudden, sharp pang of kinship with the creature. It was drawn to the light, just as you were. And now it is trapped here, just as you are. You turn back to the interior. You check the lamp again. You adjust the wick. You check the rotation speed. Everything is normal. You climb back down to the service room. The adrenaline is fading, leaving you feeling drained and heavy. You sit back in the chair. You pick up your mug. The tea is cold. You drink it anyway. 2 hours to go until the next wind. 2 hours of silence. 2 hours of the almanac. You settle in. You listen to the wind. You watch the shadows move across the floor. You are the watcher in the night, and the night is very long. You check your pocket watch. It is 2 in the morning, the witching hour, or near enough. Your stomach gives a low, rumbling growl that seems loud in the quiet service room. It is a reminder that you are a biological machine, requiring fuel just as the lamp above you requires oil. But unlike the lamp, your fuel is not purified paraffin delivered under pressure. Your fuel is salted, tinned, and dried. You decide to descend to the kitchen. The light is steady, the mechanism has been recently wound, and you have a brief window of safety. You take the lamp from the table, a small handheld hurricane lantern, and step into the stairwell. The darkness presses in immediately. The beam of your lantern cuts a swaying cone of yellow light through the gloom, illuminating the stone steps and the iron railing. The shadows dance wildly with your movement, stretching and shrinking against the curved walls. You go down, step after step. The air grows colder as you descend, leaving the heat of the lantern room far behind. You reach the living level. The kitchen is cold and smells of stale coal smoke and damp wool. You place your lantern on the table. The small circle of light makes the room feel intimate, but also emphasizes the vast darkness outside the window. You open the cupboard. It is your pantry, your larder, your lifeline. The shelves are stocked with the staples of the trade. Tins of corned beef, their labels faded and peeling. Jars of pickled onions swimming in cloudy vinegar. A sack of ship's biscuits, hard as teak and just as flavorful. A block of yellow cheese, wrapped in muslin, sweating slightly in the damp air. You stare at the options. It is the same menu as yesterday, and the day before, and the day before that. There is no variety here. No fresh bread, no crisp apples, no milk that hasn't come from a tin. You are eating for sustenance, not pleasure. You select a tin of sardines and a handful of biscuits. You place them on the table. You take out your knife, the blade worn thin from sharpening. You pierce the tin. The smell of fish and oil fills the small room. It is a pungent, strong smell, one that seems to linger in the stone long after the meal is finished. You pry back the lid, revealing the silver-skinned fish packed tight in the tin. You eat straight from the tin. There is no point in dirtying a plate. You lift a sardine with the tip of your knife and place it on a biscuit. You take a bite. The biscuit is hard. You have to gnaw at it, softening it with saliva before you can chew. It tastes of flour and dust. The sardine is salty and oily. It is a meal of textures, crunchy, slimy, dry, wet. It fills the hole in your stomach, but it leaves your soul hungry for something else, something fresh, something green. You chew slowly, staring at the blank wall opposite. You find yourself thinking about a meal you had once, years ago. A roast chicken, potatoes roasted in goose fat, green peas with mint, gravy that was thick and dark. The memory is so vivid, you can almost taste it. You close your eyes and savor the phantom flavor of the gravy. It is a dangerous game, this. Dwelling on what you don't have makes the reality of what you do have harder to bear. You push the thought away. You finish the sardines. You wipe the oil from your knife on a piece of rag. You brush the biscuit crumbs from the table into your hand and toss them into the coal bucket. Nothing is wasted. Even crumbs are fuel for the fire. You drink water from a tin cup. It is cold and flat. You are hydrated. You are fed. The biological machine is serviced. Now the routine demands attention to other matters. The logbook needs more than just weather reports. It needs the inventory. You pick up a slate and a piece of chalk. You must check the stores. It is not strictly necessary to do this at 2 a.m., but idleness is the enemy. If you stop moving, if you stop working, the silence will get in. You take your lantern and descend further, down into the belly of the tower, past the bedroom with its empty bunks, past the water tanks. You reach the oil room. The smell here is overpowering. Paraffin. It coats the back of your throat. You hold your lantern up. The great copper tanks gleam dully. You check the gauges. Tank 1, empty. Tank 2, half full. Tank 3, full. You make a mark on your slate. You will need to switch the feed to tank 3 in 2 days. You calculate the consumption in your head. 2 gallons a night in winter. Maybe 2.5 if it's particularly cold. And the oil thickens. You have enough for 3 months. You are safe. You move to the coal bunker. It is a black hole within the stone room. You peer inside. The heap of coal is dwindling. It is a dusty, dirty job to bring it up to the kitchen, bucket by bucket. You hate the coal. The dust gets everywhere. Into your clothes, into your pores, into your lungs. You cough, a dry hack that echoes in the stone chamber. You mark the level on your slate. Coal. Sufficient for 4 weeks. You will need a resupply boat soon. Resupply. The word brings a mixture of hope and anxiety. The boat comes once a month, weather permitting. It brings fresh meat, letters from home, newspapers, even if they are weeks old. But it also brings the sea. To get the supplies off the boat and onto the rock is a dangerous dance. The boat heaves in the swell, the crane swings, the crates dangle precariously over the crashing waves. Men have been crushed, men have been lost. You hope for a calm day. You check the wicks, you check the cleaning rags, you check the soap. You are counting your life in items. You are reducing your existence to a list of commodities. You climb back up. The ascent is harder now. Your legs are heavy. The sardines sit like lead in your stomach. Step by step, around and around. The spiral is a treadmill. You are a hamster in a wheel, but you aren't going anywhere. You reach the service room again. You put the slate on the table. You transfer the numbers into the logbook. Your handwriting is steady, despite the fatigue. 2:30 hours. Stores checked. Oil levels nominal. Coal low. You sit down. You have checked everything there is to check. You have eaten. You have written. And still, the night stretches out before you. You look at the walls. They are painted a gloss white to reflect the light. But in the dimness, they look grey. You notice a small spider web in the corner, near the ceiling. A tiny spider sits in the center. You wonder how it got here. Did it blow in on the wind? Did it hitch a ride on a supply crate? It is an intruder, a stowaway. You should brush it down. It is untidy. The regulations say the lighthouse must be spotless. But you don't move. You watch the spider. It is waiting, just like you. Waiting for a fly that will likely never come. It is trapped here too. "Hello?" you whisper. Your voice sounds strange, hoarse, cracked. You haven't spoken aloud in days. The word hangs in the air, fragile and absurd. You feel a flush of embarrassment, even though there is no one to hear you. Talking to spiders. This is how it starts. The madness of the rock. You clear your throat. You straighten your back. You are a keeper of the Trinity House service. You are a professional. You will not talk to spiders. You stand up and go to the window again. The storm is worse. The wind is a physical weight against the tower now. You can feel the stones swaying, a definite rhythmic lurch. Back and forth, back and forth. It is subtle but undeniable. If you look at the water in your cup, you can see the surface tilting. The ocean is trying to knock you down. It is trying to put out the light. But you are still here. The oil is flowing, the lens is turning, the routine routine is holding. You go back to the chair. You pick up the almanac again. Page 43. Pilotage dues for the Port of Cardiff. You read. You wait. You survive. The wind has found a voice. Earlier, it was a moan, then a whistle, then a shriek. Now it is a roar, a deep, guttural bellow that seems to come from the very throat of the world. It is not just air moving. It is a solid wall of force hammering against the granite skin of the tower. You can hear it tearing at the lightning conductor, vibrating the storm panes, singing in the tension cables of the gallery railing. It is 3:30 in the morning, the height of the storm. You are in the lantern room again. You had to come up. The noise below was unsettling, but up here it is terrifying. And yet you need to be close to the light. The light is the only stable thing in a world that has gone mad. You stand with your back to the lens, feeling its heat on your neck. You are facing the glass. Outside, it is chaos. The darkness is no longer absolute. It is alive with motion. The beam of the lighthouse cuts through the night, illuminating driving sheets of rain that look like silver needles. But it's the sea that holds your attention. When the light sweeps over the water, you see mountains. Great, rolling Himalayas of black water, capped with tearing white foam. They rise up out of the dark, higher than seems possible, towering over the rock, over the base of the lighthouse itself. They crash against the reef with a violence that shakes the floor plates beneath your feet. You can feel the impact in your teeth. Boom. A pause, the sucking sound of retreating water. Then, boom, again. Spray is flying over the top of the lantern. You are 120 feet above sea level, yet the ocean is reaching for you. The water hits the glass with the sound of a handful of gravel thrown by a giant. Slap. Hiss. The water runs down the panes in thick, distorted rivulets, momentarily blurring the beam before the heat of the glass evaporates it. You check the pressure in the lamp. The needle is fluctuating slightly. The vibration is affecting the feed. You pump the handle. Chug, hiss, chug, hiss. You must keep the pressure up. If the light flickers, if it dims, a ship out there in that hell might miss the flash. They might think they are further out than they are. They might turn too early. You cannot let that happen. You imagine a ship out there, a small coaster perhaps, or a fishing trawler caught in the gale. You imagine the men on the deck, soaked, freezing, terrified. They are looking for you. They are straining their eyes against the stinging salt spray, looking for the rhythmic flash of the Longstone light. You are their only hope. You are the star that guides them home. The responsibility feels heavy, heavier than the iron weights in the shaft. You are not just a man in a tower, you are a savior. It is a grand thought, a noble thought. It helps to keep the fear at bay. Because you are afraid, you wouldn't admit it to the relief captain or to your wife back on shore, but you are. The tower is strong. It was built by Stevensons, by engineers who knew rock and stone and sea. But it is just stone. And the ocean is infinite. It is relentless. It has infinite time and infinite patience. It wears down mountains. It swallows islands. Why should this slender finger of granite be any different? The tower sways. It is a sickening sensation, like being on a slow ship. You have to spread your feet to keep your balance. The mercury bath that floats the lens is designed to handle this, to keep the optic level even as the building moves. The light stays true, even if the world around it wobbles. lightning flashes. A jagged fork of white fire tears the sky open. For a split second, the whole angry seascape is frozen in a harsh, bleached light. You see the whitecaps stretching to the horizon, a field of churning chaos. You see the rocks below, black teeth bared in a snarl of foam. Then darkness snaps back, deeper than before. Thunder follows. Crack. It sounds like the sky is breaking. The noise is so loud it drowns out the wind, the sea, even the hum of the lens. You instinctively duck, covering your ears. The glass panes rattle in their frames. You pray they hold. If a pane breaks, if the wind gets in here, the lamp will blow out instantly. The wind would tear the optic apart. You would be in darkness, exposed to the full fury of the gale. You grab the handle of the manual window, just in case. You stand ready. You are the backup system. You watch the storm for what feels like hours. It is hypnotic. The violence of it is beautiful in a terrible way. It is nature unbridled, raw and indifferent. It makes you feel incredibly small. You are a flea on the back of a beast. But then, you notice something. A change in the rhythm. The wind is still howling, but the gusts are slightly less frequent. The rain is still falling, but it is less horizontal. The barometer in the service room had bottomed out earlier. Perhaps it is beginning to rise. You look at the clock, 4:15. The dawn is still hours away, but the worst of the night might be passing. The tide is turning. As the tide goes out, it often takes the worst of the wind with it. You take a deep breath. The air in the lantern room is stiflingly hot and smells of burnt oil. You need to vent it, but you dare not open a vent, not with this wind. You have to endure it. You are sweating in your wool coat. You walk around the lens again. You check the wicks. They are trimmed perfectly. The flame is a steady, unwavering cone of yellow. You polish a smudge from the brass railing. You look out one last time before heading down. The lightning has stopped. The thunder is distant, rolling away to the east. The waves are still monstrous, but they seem less angry, more rhythmic. The ocean is settling into a sullen, heavy swell. You have survived the peak. The tower has held. The light has held. You feel a wave of exhaustion wash over you. The adrenaline that kept you sharp is fading, leaving your limbs heavy and trembling. You need to sit down. You descend to the service room. It feels quiet here compared to the lantern. Quiet and safe. You sit in your chair. You pick up the pen. 04:30 hours. Gale force winds continuing but easing. Heavy seas. Thunderstorm passed to east. Light maintained. You close the book. You rest your head in your hands. You close your eyes. Just for a moment. The sound of the wind is a lullaby now. A dangerous lullaby. You must not sleep. You must not sleep. You pinch your arm. Hard. The pain wakes you up. You stand up. You do jumping jacks in the small room. 1, 2, 3. You look ridiculous. A grown man, a keeper of the light, jumping up and down in a stone tower in the middle of the ocean. But it works. The blood flows. The brain wakes up. You are still on watch. The night is not over yet. But the storm is breaking. And you are still here. The darkness is changing. It is no longer the impenetrable, suffocating black of the deep night. It has thinned, turned grey and translucent. It is the colour of old bruises. You are standing in the lantern room, your eyes gritty with fatigue, watching the world reassemble itself. It starts in the east. A faint, reluctant line of pale light bleeds into the horizon. It separates the sea from the sky, defining the boundary of the world once more. The ocean is still heaving, a landscape of grey, rolling hills. But the violence has gone. The white foam looks dirty in the half-light. The wind has dropped to a sullen gust, tugging at the tower rather than trying to push it over. You check the time. 6:30. Sunrise is imminent. Your shift is nearly over. The routine of the morning is different from the night. The night is about maintenance. The morning is about restoration. You have to put the machine to bed. You watch the sun breach the horizon. It is a pale, watery disk, struggling through the layers of cloud. It offers no warmth, but it brings light. And with the light, the beam of the lighthouse loses its power. It fades, turning from a piercing sword of brilliance into a ghostly, pale sweep that is barely visible against the brightening sky. It is time. You reach for the valve on the oil feed. You turn it slowly. The hiss of the burner changes pitch, dropping lower. The flame shrinks. It goes from a roaring yellow cone to a small blue ring, then flickers and dies. The silence that follows is profound. For the first time in 12 hours, the roar of the fire is gone. You open the vents. Cool, damp morning air rushes into the lantern room, chasing away the stale heat and the smell of burnt paraffin. It smells of salt and seaweed. You take a deep breath, filling your lungs with the clean air. It wakes you up better than the coffee you didn't have. Now, you stop the rotation. You disengage the clutch. The great glass hive slows down. The gears whine, descending in pitch until they stop with a final, heavy clunk. The movement ceases. The shadows stop dancing. The tower is still. But your work is not done. Now begins the cleaning, the day work. You take the linen curtains from their locker. These are vital. If the sun hits the lens directly, the prisms will act as a magnifying glass. They could focus the sun's rays onto the burner, melting the brass, or onto the paintwork, starting a fire. You must shroud the optic. You hook the curtains onto the rail and draw them around the glass. The lantern room is plunged into a dim, church-like gloom. The great jewel is hidden away, sleeping until dusk. You begin to clean the lamp. You wait for the burner to cool slightly. Then you trim the wicks. You use a special pair of scissors, cutting away the charred carbon. The wicks must be perfectly level for tonight. You refill the reservoir. You wipe down the brass. You clean the soot from the flue. Next, the glass. The storm has left its mark. The outer panes are coated in a thick, crusty layer of salt. It is white and opaque. You will have to go out onto the gallery to clean it. You open the storm door. The wind hits you, cold and bracing. You step out onto the narrow metal walkway that circles the top of the tower. The railing is wet and slippery. You are 120 feet up, with nothing between you and the rocks but air. You don't look down. You look at the glass. You have a bucket of fresh water and a leather chamois. You start to wash. The salt dissolves, revealing the grey morning. You work your way around the circle. The view is bleak. The ocean is endless grey. The sky is endless grey. The rock below is black. But it is your view. It is your world. You see a seal on the rocks below, a dark, slug-like shape hauling itself out of the water. It looks up at the tower, then barks. A lonely, mournful sound. You wave at it. It doesn't wave back. You finish the glass. It sparkles even in the dull light. You go back inside and lock the door. You descend the stairs, all the way down. Your legs are stiff, your knees protesting. You reach the living room. The fire in the stove has died down to embers. You riddle the grate, add fresh coal, and open the damper. The fire catches, yellow flames licking at the black lumps. You fill the kettle. You are too tired to eat, but you need tea. Always tea. You sit at the table while the water boils. You look at your hands. They are stained with oil and soot. They are rough, the skin cracked from the cold and the cleaning spirits. They are the hands of a worker, a keeper. You take out the logbook one last time. You have to sign off. 7 a.m. Light extinguished. Routine maintenance performed. Storm abated. All in order. You sign your name. It is a small assertion of identity in a book of facts. J. Moore, Principal Keeper. You close the book. The night is officially over. You drink your tea. It is hot and sweet. You feel the warmth spreading through your chest, relaxing the tight knot of tension that has been there all night. Your eyelids are heavy. Gravity is pulling at them. You stand up and walk to the bedroom. You pull back the curtain. The bunk is waiting. The blanket looks inviting. You take off your boots. Your feet throb with relief. You take off your heavy wool coat. You lie down. The mattress is thin, lumpy, and smells of straw. To you, right now, it feels like a cloud. You pull the blanket up to your chin. The tower is quiet. The wind is just a murmur now. The ocean is a distant hush. You close your eyes. The images of the night replay behind your eyelids. The spinning light, the crashing waves, the dead bird, the spider, the silence. You are tired, so tired. But it is a good tired. You did your job. You kept the light burning. You kept the ship safe. You faced the dark, and you won. Tonight, you will do it all again. You will wind the clock. You will light the lamp. You will watch. But that is for tonight. For now there is only sleep. The darkness of the room is soft and welcoming. You drift. The sound of the sea becomes the rhythm of your own breathing. In, out, in, out. You are the keeper, and you are asleep.